Before we begin, I'll say, what Howard and I were just briefly talking about, sort of just reflecting on the pretty insane week that Jewish world has had, and the suffering, in particular, of the community in Sydney, Bondi Beach, and just like wanting to hold them with us, hold us with them. It matters, even if they don't know it. It matters. And so I just want to sort of like hold that space without trying to make you feel a particular thing or that you should feel a particular thing, just like that they're in our thoughts, the community's in our thoughts, that we're sort of all bound together. The phrase Am echad belev echad, one people with one heart, has been sort of resonating for me the last couple of days. And so I sort of just want to hold that. The second thing I want to say is I am a firm believer that the Torah you encounter is meant for you that day. I believe in the power of serendipity. And I had planned, even though you have the wrong sheet in your packet, I had planned the right page. And I actually think this page is perfect for today. Because that's how, I believe in that's how Torah works. Had it been a different page, it would have been perfect also. happens to be, I think, particularly perfect for today, which we'll get to, and we can talk about that as we get there. Okay, so on your page you should have the first page you should have is 10b, should say 54 at the bottom. Is everybody on the right page? Yeah. Great. If you had it upside down, there would be nothing on the page. It'd be easy to find. Okay. Even though we're not talking about Parshat Miketz, Parshat Miketz is part of the Joseph story. And so we're going to start to get some of those as examples as part of it, including in our very first story, in our very first part of the sugya today. And in the story of the Joseph story, if I might recall, the very first verse, if you look on your page, we're in the third paragraph, Joseph will say to his brothers, "See that you not fall out by the way." This was an encouragement he had with his brothers that they shouldn't get into arguments as they were traveling back to the land before they come back to Egypt, if I remember correctly. That's part of the story. Is everybody with me? Okay, great. So I just want to give you that broader context for that. Okay, there should be a spot right here for you. Great. Okay. Would someone like to start off and read the third paragraph? In English would be great. Yeah, Howard, please.
The Gemara presents another piece of advice related to the story of Joseph and his brothers. Joseph said to them, "See that you not fall out by the way." Rabbi Elazar said that Joseph said to his brothers, "Do not become occupied in a matter of halacha, lest you fall out on the way. If you discuss a halacha while traveling, you might get into an argument. It is important for travelers to remain on good terms."
Okay, I love it. All right, so we're starting to get some travel advice here from Joseph and his brothers. All right, see that you not fall out by the way. And Rabbi Elazar, now we want to make an important distinction between the Gemara is saying and Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying. Because not that we should agree or disagree, but they're not the same. So Rabbi Elazar says, right, Joseph is encouraging his brothers, don't get lost in a halachic conversation, lest you fall out the way. And we sort of unpack what that phrasing means. And Rabbi Steinsaltz suggests that it might be that you might get into an argument and fight. I don't know if anyone else has fought on a vacation before while you've traveled.
Never.
Some of the worst fights I've ever had are on vacation. So we should be careful. I also just, as a way of this, is saying what Rabbi Elazar is going to say, you shouldn't study halacha while traveling. Dafka, like maybe that's the perfect time. It's sort of crazy in its own way. Everybody with me so far? Any thoughts on this? Right? Yeah, Dan.
It's sort of almost on this border of like, are they serious or are they joking? Because like you see exactly what they're talking about, but at the same point it's like, don't do what we're doing because everyone who does what we're doing gets in arguments. Yeah. And that's a bad thing.
Right, not good arguments, but bad arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, it's a little surprising. Yeah. I want everyone to look at the very bottom of the page below the notes, where the notes section is. Does everybody see that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? And the last one says, lest you fall out, by the way. The great thing about this version of the Gemara, this is the Rabbi Steinsaltz English current version, has all these wonderful notes and stuff on the side. And it says this, lest you fall out, by the way. Rashi explains, in case you become lost on the way, right? So you might get into an argument, and you should have turned left on the road, but you weren't listening, and you ended up in the wrong place. Okay, that's one potential understanding of this phrase. Others similarly explain that the focus on halacha might cause them to be distracted and lose their bearings. So me'iri. So it's not any Torah. You should discuss Torah when you're traveling, but be careful around halacha. Right? That might actually be more concrete. The Meiri suggests that. And the last one is, yet others maintain, this is where Rabbi Steinsaltz gets his, that people observing them might suspect them of being quarrelsome. Right? Jews, quarrelsome, never heard of such a thing. Right? So what do we do? Does anyone have a particular view they want to claim?
I would like to claim two things. One
Please.
is I am a person who is distractible when traveling. So I have to really not have other serious conversations or I will not go in the right direction.
Yeah.
So that I think is a very human thing. But the other one is I think this is sort of like halacha is a serious thing. It's a thing to litamek and to get into depth, and that is not a thing you're doing when you're schlepping bags or getting on and off a horse or whatever things that are more mundane type of things.
Right. If I am discussing the finer points of Shabbat observance and I'm trying to get out of a taxi, maybe that's not going to be a perfect fit. Okay, I like that. Yeah, that's real.
It's interesting though, because I think of traveling, what I'm assuming this context is. Like I'm assuming they're saying traveling, like literally like you're on your way somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm picturing like a long car ride.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not what they're discussing here, but that's precisely when I have like my time for like my juiciest, most in-depth conversations. Because there's like, you're not distracted
There's
by things
time.
outside of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
It
nothing
seems
else
like that's a
happening.
really, I mean, unless you're going to, need to take notes or look something up, but like it is a good time to have a sustained conversation.
Yeah, this is when I want to listen to my podcast shiurim and get really deep into something, right? Okay, let's see what happens next. Can someone go to the next paragraph where it says Gemara asks, and then it says in Aramaic it says ini. Is that so? Is this really the case? Can I get a volunteer to read for me?
Is that so? But didn't Rabbi Eli bar Berachia say, with regard to two Torah scholars who are walking along the road, and there are no Torah matters between them, they are worthy of being burned, as it is stated. It came to pass as they still went on and talked that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, which parted them both asunder.
All right, pause. Before we read the second half, let's just get some context. All right, so Rabbi Eli bar Berechia is saying, is this possible? You're possible that Joseph is going to say, you shouldn't study Torah while you're on the way. Like, it couldn't possibly be the case. We have a teaching, right? Two scholars who don't talk on the Torah on the road, right, are liable. They're liable for death, for being burned. And how do we know this? This verse comes from the moment in Tanakh in which, in 2 Kings, when Elijah is going to be taken up to heaven without dying. Right? He's literally going to be like picked up in this burning chariot. Well, literally is, I guess, not fair. But do with that what you will. All right, so this whole encounter is Elisha and Elijah walking around, going to this place, that place, knowing that Elijah is about to get swept up. And so the question is like, they're talking Torah in some way. It's like, we've got this fire thing. What's happening? The thing they're going to point on is this word which parted them both asunder. V'yafridu bein shnehem. That's sort of separated between them. Why don't you read the rest for us?
Okay. The reason that the chariot of fire did not harm Elisha is because there was a Torah matter between them, from which it may be inferred that they had not been discussing a Torah matter, that had they not been discussing a Torah matter, they would have been worthy of being burned.
Right. So how do we know that if you don't study Torah, you're worthy of being burned? Because these guys didn't get burned. So the opposite must then be true. It's a little silly, but clearly, studying Torah and halacha and this advice, there's some nuance here, some complexity.
Can I just ask? I'm curious about
Yeah.
something. The rabbis are building on this Joseph story. There was no Torah. There was no halacha.
Yeah.
So what are they doing?
Yeah. What are they doing?
The They're just projecting.
They're 100% projecting. Yeah. There's a whole place where they, and elsewhere, where they describe the yeshivot that were in the desert, or on Sinai. The rabbis, I wrote a piece about this a couple of years ago. The rabbis want so desperately for the characters in Tanakh to be just like them. I think we all want other people to be like us on some level. It's like, oh, I understand you. You're like me, or that kind of thing. So I think that's what this is. But then we have this phrase, lest you fall out on the way. The question is, well, what could that possibly mean? And so now they're using this hook to be able to sort of say whatever they want to say.
What is
Wait a second.
I
Iris.
have a question, and then worthy of being burned sounds like a punishment, but Elijah going up in the chariot was not a punishment; it was a reward, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I'm not quite getting this. I
Yeah.
mean,
So Elijah didn't die,
right.
So he wasn't burned.
so he wasn't burned.
Yeah.
So the question is, the guy next to him, who didn't die, who ostensibly would have died in the context,
I see. Okay. So
he was
that's what
protected
it's
because he had
about.
been studying
Yeah,
Torah.
okay.
It's a little strangely
Yes.
worded.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael,
what's
please.
what's the meaning of the Shorish Resh Gimel Zayin? It says Tirgazu, but I mean,
We wrote this. It's an argument.
Where? I'm sorry. Where is this?
I'm
Point
sorry,
to this.
it's the Al Tirgazu
The word
B'Derech.
is associated with anger.
Regez. I don't know that root off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
it's from anger.
And
The Itagez used to get mad.
Rogas.
Right.
No, Gizmish was.
That they're translating here, lest you fall out,
Yeah.
right? Lest you become angry, right? So there's some nuance there, clearly.
Well, I mean, I've just the way it's traded as, the way that is translated as fallout clearly was imposing a particular meaning on it, and I was just wondering what the general usage of that word was. But you're saying anger. Good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
these-
actually,
you
when
wanna
I
say
first
more?
saw the English, I thought fall out like literally fall out of your wagon.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was a fallout like
A falling out.
Have a falling out.
Don't get angry among yourselves.
Don't get angry. Yeah. Be quarrelsome.
Be quarrelsome.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, so how do we resolve this problem, ostensible problem, where Joseph and his brother, Joseph's giving the travel advice of don't get into a fight, don't study halacha, and yet we have this instruction that dafka you should be studying Torah. So how do we resolve this? The Gemara answers, this is not difficult. Lo kashya. Right? So we have a problem. It's seemingly difficult. No, it's not difficult. The rabbis are always going to say, the way the rabbis solve a problem is we have an apparent contradiction, but it can't be a contradiction. Therefore, they must be different cases. That's how the Gemara solves every problem. It can't be a contradiction because they're talking about different things. So what are the two different things? This opinion of Rabbi Eli bar Berechia is referring to studying by rote. Migras, right? Ligros is like to repeat, like to memorize kind of thing. Right? By reviewing material one has already learned, meaning to say that it's permitted and appropriate while traveling. So you don't learn anything new. Just keep reviewing what you already learned. My teacher, Rabbi Patricia Fenton in rabbinical school, said review is where all the learning happens. So it's not a small thing. It's an important thing to do. Whereas the opinion of Rabbi Elazar in the original statement is referring to examining a halacha in depth, in which case it's likely the scholars would come into conflict. Which is to say, if you're studying something anew, maybe you don't totally understand it, or its truth is being revealed still. That's maybe not the thing you should do while you're walking the streets of Rome. Something along those lines. Okay.
The controversy has already been resolved.
Internally,
Yeah.
right? Where you've already worked it all out. You're just trying to make sure you don't lose
You're
it.
not going to have a fight. Though.
Exactly. Okay, turn the page. Yeah.
To the back.
To the back. Sorry. Yes. They are in order. They are in order. Yes. Replay your podcasts. You can listen to Serial again from 10 years ago. Okay. So now we're going to get a little bit more travel advice. We're not going to spend 100% of our time here in this travel advice, but here's the thing, because there's stuff I want to get to. Here's the thing I want to pull out, the principle that I see that's pulling all of this, which is traveling is vulnerable time. When you are traveling, you're away from home, you are on some level vulnerable. Right at home, you got all your stuff, right? You're not going to run out of caffeine first thing in the morning because you got your setup, but you're out traveling, you don't know exactly where the closest coffee shop, whatever the thing is, right? You're at Airbnb, you don't know where all the things are. That travel is a manifestation of vulnerability. And so the question, again, reading these texts not just as instructions, but as metaphors, right, as we were starting to do, as principles that we can sort of draw out, what are we learning about vulnerability here? Travel and vulnerability that emerges, right? So here, vulnerability is a place where conflict can emerge between people who care about each other. So we have to be cautious, right? And at the same time, Torah has a healing property, perhaps, around vulnerability. Okay, and so that's interesting. So I want you, just as we continue to go through some of these examples, we're not going to dig into every single one as in depth as we just did. We have that in mind, and then if something comes up to you, we'll talk about it. All right, can someone start where it says, and it is taught in a baraita? Please.
It is taught in a baraita that Joseph said to his brothers, "Do not take long strides and bring the sun into the city. For example, you should enter the city, spend the night there before the sun is set." The Gemara elaborates, "Do not take long strides, as the master said, a long stride takes away 1/500th of a person's eyesight, and this loss is not worth the time saved."
Amazing. Right, so we've got two pieces of advice here. One is don't take long strides, and the second one is bring sun in the city. The second one we're going to get in a second in the next paragraph. But don't take long strides. The master said a long stride takes 1/500th of a person's eyesight. Right, so it's going to enact some sort of toll against you. It's small. It's seemingly small, but it's going to take a toll from you. I want to share something I learned this week. I was watching a video. It was describing the design of a speedometer in your car. Right, it's by miles per hour. That's the measurement system we use. And this person was saying that's not the only way we could be measuring time. There's different ways. And that one could be, and it was showing a picture of this.
You're measuring speed.
Right, that's measuring speed, of how many minutes or how many miles miles you travel or how many minutes it takes to travel 10 miles. That's what it was. And what he was saying is at the very beginning, it's a lot. From 5 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour to 20 miles, it's actually a huge jump in terms of how fast you get in 10 minutes. But as you get faster and faster, the benefits decrease. It doesn't grow as much every time. And he was saying it's by having that framework in mind, you might actually make a different choice if you're 5 or 10 minutes behind and you're already driving at 60 miles an hour. Maybe those extra 10 miles per hour is not worth it, right? It's actually quite a bit dangerous. When I read this, that was the thing I thought of. Mm-hmm. When we're traveling too quickly or we're doing something too fast, we can get reckless. That's what I think this is teaching us. Long strides, maybe speed walking, we should be dangerous. Maybe it's a little dangerous, whatever. I actually think it's a mindset. We got to be careful. Kim, will you read the next one as well? Let's get to the second example.
The Gemara further explains, "And bring the sun into the city. This is in accordance with a statement that Rav said. As Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, a person should always leave the place where he has spent the night with 'it is good.' After sunrise, as the Torah uses the expression, 'it is good' with regard to the creation of light. This goodness is manifest in the sense of security one feels when it is light. And likewise, when one comes into an unfamiliar city, he should enter with 'it is good' before sunset. As it is stated, as soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away."
So what's happening here?
You shouldn't arrive nor leave places in the dark.
Yeah. Travel when it's light out. It's safer. And then we have this fun, as the rabbis always have a choice. They're going to try and find a verse to prove their case. The light was good, right? Not one I would have guessed, right? Not maybe where I would have drawn wisdom from, but it's such a radical read of that verse. I think that's pretty amazing. And I think generally probably good advice. Unless you don't know where you are, traveling in the dark is not so great. I don't like to travel in the dark when I do know the place, let alone somewhere unfamiliar.
At the top of the page, I'm not figuring it out, because taking long strides would mean you would get there sooner, and you might describe that as bringing the sun into the city. And yet the Stanzal says
It's two pieces of advice in one sentence. So it's pulling them. The Gemara is pulling them apart as separate concepts.
So they're not related.
Not
I would
necessarily.
think taking long strides means you would bring the son into the city, and that would be good, except it says don't do it.
No,
Yeah.
it's saying do not take long strides while you are traveling. Period. And while you are traveling, bring the son into the city. Is the way I would.
Oh,
read
they're
that.
not connected.
I
to each
don't
other.
think there is. The Gemara is not linking them.
Got it. Okay.
Right. I think the first one means don't be reckless, and the second one is be safe. I think generally good advice here. Okay. So we're shifting again. We're talking about vulnerability. We're shifting from travel advice here, being in a vulnerable state outside of your comfort zone, to a different kind of vulnerability, or sort of overlapping with the next thing. Can I get a volunteer read where it says similarly? Yeah, please.
Similarly, Rav Yehuda said that Rabbi Hia said, one who is walking along the road should not eat more each day than he normally would eat each day in a year of famine. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for this? Here in Babylonia, they interpreted that the reason is due to one's bowels. Since the exertion of traveling can damage full bowels, it is preferable to eat less than the normal amount.
Amazing. Okay. Before we get to the second half, right? Rav Yehuda and Rabbi Chia are from different places. Whenever you see Rav, it almost always means Babylonia, and when you see Rabbi, it almost always means land of Israel.
Wait, say that one more time.
Rav
Yeah.
is a Babylonian title, and Rabbi is an Eretz Israeli title. So it's not always the case, but usually, often, people like Hillel and Shammai who don't get the title Rabbi because they precede it, they're in the land of Israel too, but they don't have the title. Even though we obviously know that they were becoming that. So here it's introducing this sort of tension between the two. Of course, as I've shared with you before, my teacher Reb Mimi Fagoson likes to drash on the names. Rabbi Chia come from Chai, living. It's like such perfect drash here, right? It's like you're traveling and there's some famine, whatever. Okay, so we should be careful when we're traveling to not eat more than we would in a time of tremendous famine, which is we should be judicious with the materials we have, or potentially, right? We have potential answers for why Gemara asks why might that be, and so here I'm looking at the wrong paragraph. Here it is. Right, the Gemara asks what's the reason for this, and my ta'ama. If you look in the Aramaic, it's the third line, second and third words. My ta'ama. What is the reason? Right. We have two answers. We're getting the first one first from Babylonia, which was, it's not good to travel when you're on a full stomach. It's not going to feel good. You're going to get sick, and that's not a good thing. Right? Traveling it's not good to travel. You're going to have to stop to pee everywhere you go. Like it's not good. Okay, keep reading.
In the West, Eretz Israel, they say that the reason is due to food, i.e., if one eats too much, his food may not last the entire journey, and therefore he should ration his meals. Okay,
so now we have two potential reasons that are kind of not mutually exclusive, but they're really very much not the same. And so, what is the advice? What's the lesson from the West here?
Save your food.
Rational.
You're going to run out of food if you eat too much, right? Be judicious. Okay, all right, keep reading.
The Gemara asks, what is the practical difference between these two opinions?
My benaihu. If you look in the Aramaic, it's the fifth line, third and fourth words. My benaihu. What is between them? What's the difference? Keep going. I'm sorry.
The Gemara answers, the practical difference between them is in a case where he is sitting in a boat.
Obviously. I'm just kidding. Keep going.
The traveler must be concerned about his food supply, but he need not worry that the jostling of the road might force him to exert himself, which has a tendency to cause digestive problems, as compared to being seasick.
Right. I was listening to a shiur. It was exactly what she said. Right. But ostensibly, right, if I'm walking and I'm riding a boat, there's a different kind of exertion. I think that's the example they're giving. But I think seasickness makes this a challenging argument to make. Alternatively,
the practical difference is in a case where he is traveling from station, Avna, to station. Here, the exertion of the road might cause digestive problems, but one need not be concerned about running out of food as he can resupply along the way.
Okay. So, the other situation, why these two examples, right? These different reasons, who cares what the difference is? No, here there's practical differences. Right? If you're traveling by boat, you may not have to be worrying about it. Or if you're traveling from town to town, then maybe it's not such a big deal. But if you're out and you're backpacking through the woods, okay, it's not quite the same. Yeah, all right.
In the
Wait a
boat,
second.
in the boat, somebody else obviously is propelling the boat if you're not exerting yourself.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it wasn't exactly a motorboat. So.
Right. We're not. This is not necessarily a kayaking trip,
Yeah.
right? You might be traveling, down a large river or some sort of thing. Yeah, great. Good nuance there. Yeah, Michael.
The Bavli reason is very reminiscent of the old wives' tale that people used to have with respect to eating and swimming.
Oh, right. Eat, but wait 30 minutes before you swim.
You got to wait after, and apparently there's no truth to it, but it was the kind of thing that if you're exercising on a full stomach, you'll get cramps.
Amazing.
It's more than an old wives' tale. I mean, it's in Rambam. It's in Hilchot.
All the point is, right?
Sure.
We have been sharing this wisdom for 2,000 years. We can be blamed. All right. I love it. Okay.
Rambam talks extensively about how you should eat and then not get on a horse and then not swim and not do many, many things.
Amazing. My favorite Rambam advice is that if you have to go to the bathroom, go. Don't hold it. Just go. Go to the bathroom. Don't wait till later. I think it's a good way. He was a doctor. He knows what he was talking about. Okay. So then the Gemara ends this sort of unit of traveling with the following. The Gemara relates that Rav Papa traveled along each and every parsang, which is a distance. He would eat one loaf of bread. It's a lot of bread. Maybe loaves were smaller then. Who knows? It's a lot.
Parsang is really long.
Right. It's either way. It's also a lot of bread. Rav Papa did so because he maintained that the prohibition was due to bowels. So he held by Babylonian worldview, which is that if you eat too much, you're going to be sick. But for him, he said he was healthy. He was not concerned about travel would irritate his digestion. So he's like, I travel fine. Don't worry about it. I don't get car sick. So I'm going to eat as much as I need to.
He also didn't worry about running out.
Or he didn't. Right. That wasn't his concern.
A lot of loaves of bread.
That's a lot of loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the loaf is our notion, and imposed by Steinsaltz. One bread might be a naan.
Yeah, but I think the context here is that we're eating that we're full, having a full stomach the whole time. So you're right. We don't know exactly how big a loaf is. It could be big or small, what have you, but certainly enough. The rabbis are very specific about measurements. I don't know how much a loaf is per se, but okay.
But the
Rabbi Steinsaltz isn't being clear here. But
it was.
It says chada. Chada rifta, one bread.
One bread.
And they
so-
wouldn't have had yeast that was outside of the area, so loaves wouldn't have gotten that big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they still would have been using air-based yeast.
Yeah, I think
Like you wouldn't have had.
that's true. Right. It's a little bit of a sourdough here. Either way, it wasn't a big deal. He didn't care. Right? You can do whatever you want. Okay. I know I'm moving us a little quickly, and you'll forgive me. But the second half, I think, is really interesting. So we had this vulnerability question around traveling, about what it means to be in relationship with the people around us. And then we have a traveling advice about resources, right? Or distance and right, going to context, geography. And then we have a question of resources. There's a lot here that's emerging from a conversation about travel. You'd think it would be just simple travel advice, but actually there are deep principles and contexts happening here. The next text we're going to look at, a couple more paragraphs here. No, it's perfect. Okay, let's keep going. Can I get someone to read for us Rav Yehuda here?
I can read.
Please.
Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, anyone who has food for himself but nevertheless starves himself in years of famine will be saved from an unusual death, as it is stated. In famine, he will redeem you from death.
All right, I'm going to pause you there. So Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, right? We're always quoting in the name, B'Shem Omro, in the name of the person who said it. We always want to give credit. Anyone who has resources, who has food, and yet is, careful, is not eating to satisfaction, right? Is starving themselves perhaps, Here that's the translation, but we can think more broadly, will be saved from an unusual death. What an unusual death is, I couldn't tell you, right? Not something I would wish on someone, not someone I would want, but certainly not great, right? Will be protected, right? This behavior is advisable behavior, is the impression the Gemara is giving us. How do we know this? We have a verse from Job, in famine, God will redeem you from death. Could not be clearer, right? If there's a famine, God will save you, and here's the argument for it. All right, keep reading. Naomi?
This is derived from the precise wording of the verse. According to its straightforward meaning, instead of in famine, it should have said from famine, as one is delivered from famine. Rather, this is what the verse is saying. As a reward from starving himself in years of famine, Job will be saved from an unusual death.
Right, here is a question of preposition. In a famine versus from a famine. God's going to save me from a famine, or in a famine, I'm going to do something. Okay, we're not going to get too lost in the halakha here, but here, what I want you to notice, again, vulnerability. A famine is community vulnerability. It's a geographies of vulnerability. It's a scary time. People don't have what they need. And here, the advice is, be judicious. Be
It seems
careful.
to me that
Yeah.
the advice isn't share your food with somebody else. It's don't eat.
Say more. What does that tell you?
Well, I mean, so much of our tradition is about helping one another. That's not this. This is very you and your relationship with God. It's got nothing to do with the community.
Yeah.
Which seems to me a little unusual.
Almost uncomfortable.
Well, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right. It could. Yeah. Please.
I kind of felt that was like the unstated part. Like, if you have the food and you're not eating it in famine, that's because you must be giving it to somebody. Like, it felt like
But you're being generous, Dave.
Yeah, I think it was just hold on to it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So, which is to say, you're saying it's implied, which is by the nature of me starving myself, I have more resources, therefore I can share it. Right? The argument could also be, I have more resources, so I can last longer by myself. But I like you read better.
It could also be a context in which you follow the maxim of don't separate yourself from the community.
Ooh, spoilers. Spoilers. Hold on to that. All right. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? It just reminds me of the joke from last week about the 2 weeks ago was the guy who's drowning, and then the helicopter and the boat and the thing. And this sends me to the opposite. When I read it, I was like, anyone who has food for himself and he's still starving himself, like, why are you not taking care of yourself so you don't need to be saved?
Yeah, well, that's my thought. Like, why are they telling him not to?
Like, so that he can starve himself, so then God can like save him. That felt a little dramatic.
Why don't you
I love
eat
that.
and then you can help others or something, or like don't. Why don't you take care of yourself so you can survive, so you can help others.
These are exactly the right questions, and the rest of the sugya is going to speak to this in a really deep way. I think just on a technical level, my guess is when it says starve, it means eat the minimum that you need to be okay, right? Like don't put yourself into danger.
Yeah.
But I think your point is well made, which is to say, like, just because I'm at my minimum doesn't mean that I'm feeling okay, right? More resources, more food might allow me to be healthier, right? More capable. So I think your point is still well made here. But that is exactly the right question. Let's turn the page. Do you have the last page?
On that.
Yeah, please.
Travel advice. We seem to have strayed from travel.
We have traveled. Yeah. How did we get here?
How did we get to that?
We traveled here. We got here through famine,
Yeah.
right? So Joseph, again, Joseph is in the context of a famine as well, in the broad sense. We have travel advice about the brothers. We have disagreement. Then we had traveling in various geographies. Then we had traveling about food, and then we had the analogy. Here, if you look on the second page, third paragraph, it says, "You should not eat more in a day than one should eat each day in a year of a famine." The rabbis are associative thinkers. So we got from travel, we got to food, we got to famine. Here we are. But that's the right question. Remember that we talked about this a while back. The Gemara is an edited document. It's not here by accident. The Gemara is teaching us something along the way. Now we're jumping in, or sort of parachuting into the middle, then we'll parachute somewhere else, because you don't parachute somewhere else exactly, but the journey matters to us here, right? We're keeping track of it, so I'm glad you brought it up. Any other thoughts before we turn the page? Okay, let's turn the page. We are not going to discuss this halakha l'maaseh, but we'll put it here anyway. Similarly, Reish Lakish said, it's prohibited for a person to have conjugal relations in years of famine, so that children not be born during these difficult years. As it is stated, and to Joseph were born 2 sons before the year of the famine came. It was, I'll pause there, right? So Reish Lakish is saying, it's not just food that you should limit. There are other behaviors that should be limited as well. And how do we know this? We have this verse from Joseph. Again, Joseph, who had 2 sons before, that's the key word here, the year of the famine came, right? So it's, again, the rabbis are going to use whatever verse they have available to them. It's going to serve them. How do we know we shouldn't do this during a famine? Because Joseph did it before. Not that we could all be so planned and organized as this, but okay, fine. And then it was taught in a Braita, nevertheless, those without children may have marital relations in years of famine, as they must strive to fulfill the mitzvah, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, so there are exceptions. Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. We sort of sped through a lot of Gemara here. This is the part where I want us to slow down. I think the texts we're about to read are complicated. And I think they're emotional. And I think in the context, this is where I was telling you that the Torah strikes you. The moment is always perfect. I think these are the texts that I was thinking of, right? We're going to talk about community suffering and distress. And I think we're in a community, and we're a worldwide Jewish community in distress. And so I want to hold these texts with tender care, which is that we should be very careful how we read them, because they may not always say exactly what we want them to say, but they have something to teach us. Okay, Michael, since you led the spoiler, I'd like you to read next, please.
How do you feel about
Yeah.
that spoiler? I'm very curious.
Is that good?
I mean,
Some hints of it.
No, I just associated it with that portion of Avot as
Yes.
being
Oh, okay.
as being sort of a principle which might say, okay, everybody else is hungry. I should not indulge myself in a way that is incompatible with being part of the same community.
It's perfect. Pause, because yes, keep reading, please. Likewise, we're in the second paragraph on the 3rd page.
Likewise, the sages taught in a Braita, when the Jewish people is immersed in distress, and one of them separates himself from the community and does not share their suffering, the 2 ministering angels who accompany a person come and place their hands on his head, as though he was an offering, and say, this man, so-and-so, who has separated himself from the community, let him not see the consolation of the community.
Okay. Sages are teaching, right? Community, the people are in distress. They're not saying, do not separate yourself from the community, although it does say that. And in Masechet Pirkei Avot, it says it, chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. Originally, I was going to bring my copy to read what Gordon Tucker wrote in the commentary, because it was relevant, but I forgot it at home. So, maybe for another time. But go look at it if you want. But it's 100% speaking, it uses a slightly different verb, but the same meaning here. Okay? So what's happening? The 2 angels that accompany each and every one of us in this sort of mystical view is going to say to this person, they're not going to benefit for when the community recovers and the community is consoled. They're not participating in the suffering. They're not going to get the benefit of the consoling.
These ministering angels, is that like the 2 angels that are supposed to show up on
Shabbat?
On Shabbat? And,
You betcha.
And one is nasty and the other one is not?
Yes, that does. That part might not be might not come from this. If you look at the second line, the last 2 words, this is Malachei Yesharet. It's exactly the same words as Shalom Aleichem, these 2 angels. The Tur explains that whole thing, that in the Tur, which is the halachic code that precedes the Shulchan Aruch, describes that on Shabbat, you have 2 angels, one evil and one good, and whatever the other one says, the other one has to agree. So the instruction in the halacha of Shabbat, it says you should clean your house, so that when your house is clean before Shabbat, when your house is clean, the good angel says, "May it be this way next week," and the evil angel has to say, "Amen." And if your house is a mess, the evil angel says, "May it be this way next week," and the good one has to say, "Amen." You should keep your house clean, right? That's my favorite example of these. But yes, we have these ministering angels. There's a lot of interesting stuff around angels. Angels don't have free will in the Jewish concept. They are messengers from God. They have no choice. They do what God created them to do. My favorite example of angels in the tradition is the idea that every blade of grass has an angel saying to it, "Grow." That's one of my favorites. Yeah. Okay. Neither here nor there. In this case, not so good. Right? The person's not is really in a vulnerable position. Let's say.
Well,
They've-
can you
yeah.
Can you say more about let him not see the consolation of the community? So what do you
What does that
understand
mean?
that to mean? I mean, how sounding like the consolation is going to happen, but this person is not going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So does this person die? Does this person get shunned away? Does this person, is he supposed to walk away?
I think there's an infinite number of answers to this. The Gemara is going to take one. I could certainly suggest some others. I think on a principle level, right? We're not going to make a halachic ruling here, right? I'm not going around saying, you separate as a community, you're SOL, right? Like, we're not doing that to each other. So as a principle, we might say, someone who separates from the community, they're gone. They've cut themselves off. Here, the Malachei Hasharet are participating in some sense, right? When the community rebounds, they're not a part of it anymore. It might just be descriptive by that point, right? Someone who is I'm trying to do this in a way that doesn't make any particular group I can think of pejorative here, right? But like, I'll give you a better example, one that's not going to make anybody feel bad. I've never participated in a high school reunion. Not once. They're always on Friday nights, and they're in a different city I never live in, so like, okay, so whatever. But I've never participated. So when my high school has some sort of wonderful thing happening to it, I'm not a part of that. When they're suffering and they're good, I'm just not a part of that community any longer. I have separated myself from it in some way. So there might be a descriptive angle here. It's just like this. That's the nature of how things work. But I actually think the Gemara is actually making a much larger statement than that. And we can sort of unpack what that looks like here. This is sensitive. Look, I'm naming this. This is like sensitive right now. But that's how Torah works sometimes. It pushes all the right buttons or the wrong buttons. So let's wait and see. And then we can decide together or disagree together.
I'm not sure if this is right or not,
Please.
but I keep thinking of the Little Red Hen story. Like, I mean, if you're not a part
I'm not familiar with that story.
who will help me bake the bread, who will help me, like all the pieces of making
Oh, I thought that
a
was a
bread.
sandwich falling. That's not the one right here?
No.
Give the two-sentence version of what the story is
Who will help
about.
me
Oh,
pick the
I was
wheat, who will help me roll out the dough, whatever, and no one wants to help, no one wants to help, no one wants to help, and then at the end she makes the bread, and it says who will help me eat the bread, and everyone who would decline to participate now wants to eat the bread, and the hen is, I'm pretty sure the hen says you're not allowed to, right?
That's perfect.
So I feel like it's the same thing, like if you're not gonna be part of the service, then you don't get to be
You
part
don't
of the
get to
joy.
eat the bread.
Mhm.
Yeah, perfect for a famine lead-in, right?
Next time.
But like, yeah, right, which is like, you got to be a part of it on some level, right? We're now describing consolation as a benefit, which is a weird thing already. But yeah, a great example. It's great. Let's keep reading together. Can I get another volunteer to read? And just before that person volunteers, if you look at the first two words, it says Tanya Idach. It's Idach is like another. So it's like Tanya is like when we talked about Tanu Rabbanan, the Tanya. These are all introductions of Baraitot, which are the early Mishnaic era teachings. So they're going to be from the land of Israel. They're going to be in the 1st and 2nd century, as opposed to the Gemara, which is a couple centuries later. All right, volunteer,
Okay.
please.
A similar idea is taught in another Baraita. When the community is immersed in suffering, a person may not say, I will go to my home, I will eat and drink, and peace be upon you, my soul. And if he does so, the verse says about him, and behold, joy and gladness, slaying oxen and killing sheep, eating fish and drinking wine, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we shall die.
Keep going.
And the prophecy continues with what is written afterwards in the following verse. And the Lord of hosts revealed himself in my ears. Surely this iniquity shall not be expiated by you until you die.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to do a structural thing first, and then we'll talk about the content. We might say, why didn't they just quote both verses all at once? Because each one is doing something different. That's why they're separated out like this. Each one of them is teaching us something separate, or that it's not one idea; it's two ideas happening simultaneously. Okay, let's talk content.
Simultaneously or consecutively?
What I mean to say is they're teaching two things, not one thing. However, which way you want to divide that up. Okay. So the person, while the community is suffering, immersed in suffering, again, this language of immersion here, it's like water. It's overwhelming. It's complete, right? There's a real sense of a lot. When the community is suffering, a person should not say, "I will go home and eat and drink." Like, I'm gonna go eat, because this is the key word here in the verse. For tomorrow we shall die. This person recognizes it's not a good situation. At least they see it. But they're going to go home and they're going to satisfy themselves. That's the first thing, right? Now we've described the person, right? They understand the consequences, the context. They're in it. The Gemara is telling us this person's separation is not a resolvable one. Death is really the only one. Not necessarily the person's going to be punished by death, they are saying that, but like, it could be down the road, right? It's not like that. Not going to be no smiting happening here necessarily, right? Which is to say, we always know how important a halacha is by the nature of its punishment. The severity of the punishment tells us how significant of a halacha is. Is this one pretty significant? It would seem so, right? To ignore the suffering of the community, even if you know that down the road it's going to impact you too, it's not enough. That's separation. Again, maybe we're starting to define terms here a little bit.
But the punishment, such as it is not that you're going to die fast, but that to use the analogy for a couple of weeks from now, your heart gets sufficiently hardened that you cannot repent.
I love the analogy. I think you'll see in a second that's gonna apply better to someone else. Okay. Here, I think is two things. Look at the phrase at the very end in the Hebrew. It's the last full line of that paragraph. It says, "Im Yuchupar ha'avon hazeh lachem ad temutun." Yichupar is the same word as kippur, right? That's the translated here as expiation. There is a...
But even here isn't if. Wait, the aim is you can't do it, right?
No, I think the aim is, which is to say that the person's death closes the loop. Right? There are certain sins in the tradition that say you can do as much tshuva as you can do, and death is the end. Like, then it's resolved. At death, it's resolved. Right? Yom Kippur resolves sometimes it's just the other person. Right? There's different levels to it. Death, but then it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we call
the
an unforgivable
language-
sin?
1 second.
Doesn't the language suggest that you can't repent from this?
You can repent, but it doesn't go into fulfillment until death. But then it's done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's the nuance. Yeah.
I think that's what we call an unforgivable sin.
Yes. It's the highest standard.
There's nothing you can do. It won't go away.
Until death. Right. For the rabbis, they're suggesting that there's Holam Haba, there's some sort of other existence they're going to have. So it's resolved temporarily until it's resolved. So, but yes, effectively, There's nothing much you can do.
I mean, the thing about tomorrow we shall die, it does say machar, but, you know, that's sort of, it sounds like it's more like eventually we're gonna die, not tomorrow. You know, it's more like Kohelet, it's, you know,
Yeah.
enjoy yourself,
So-
someday you're gonna die.
So the reason why I'm pulling that out is because I know what's coming next, and I want us to keep an eye on it, which is that I am suggesting, with good reason hopefully, that this person understands what's happening
Okay,
and is making a choice.
I see, all right.
But still understands that it's going to impact them, that there's some sort of consequence. Like, they get it, they see it. They're not ignoring it, they're not pretending it's that. They're just making a choice not to participate, which I think there's a nuance there. Yeah.
Is it right for me, well, the way I understand
Yeah.
this is that this person, there's no forgiveness until death, but between whatever moment it is and death, this person is still part of the community. That's my question.
In the context of the Gemara, I would argue that the answer is no.
Okay.
That they have separated themselves sufficiently that there is some sort of distance, let's put it that way. Right, we're thinking, let's think a little less, like they might still be paying dues. We're not like having that kind of conversation, right? Right, we're saying that they're like on some level distanced themselves on a functionally, yeah, emotionally. They are not in it with everybody else.
Right, and everybody else, do they cross the street when they see this person coming? I'm trying to...
We're not going to do any halacha lama'aseh
Okay.
here. I'll leave that up to you. If you see them and you want to cross the street, that's up to you.
It feels like the Rasha. It feels like the wicked child.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
whatever you want to
So
call
we
it.
haven't
Me
got
too.
amazing. Will you please read the next paragraph?
The
You guys
Breita?
are the Breita comments.
Up to this point, it is up to this point is the attribute of middling people who are merely excluding themselves from the suffering of the community. However, with regard to the attribute of wicked people, what is written about those who hope for more of these days?
Okay, pause. Everyone we've described right now is the average person, which is wild. Middling person is Benoni here. The Rambam says, right, this is like the regular person. They're not tzaddik, they're not super righteous, they're not particularly evil, they're just like a regular person. We're about to describe the evil person, yeah.
And what's interesting with this is like, for something that's sort of a pseudo death penalty, like it's really not specific what you do to get this one. Like other ones seem very specific of like, you know, what gives this. This is sort of like you eat a little bit more than you should during your famine, or you like it's very like how you're separating yourself seems a bit fuzzier for a penalty so harsh, especially now that they're saying.
But it's not a penalty, isn't it? Just functionally, it's like you're just not there.
Wait, so I want to. I understand what you're asking. So I think two things. One is I think this person is more than just eating a little bit more. In the example of the verse, joy and gladness, slaying oxen and killing sheep. They're sacrificing stuff. They're having steaks, drinking wine. You know, let's eat and drink. Like nothing matters anymore. So I would just shift the nature of that person's behavior. So that's the first thing. The second thing you're asking is, right, like death is a punishment in the rabbinic tradition. But there are two different systems. God's doing it and humans doing it. The rabbis have basically got rid of any way that a human could do it. They've just made it functionally impossible for a death penalty to exist. And the second is, okay, we'll leave it to God to decide. And that's the
We
category
don't
we're
really
in.
do excommunication. I mean, this isn't
That's
even,
true.
This isn't even that. This isn't the community forcing the person.
Correct. This is God saying, look, you're going to end up on your own. You're going to end up. So again, I want to pull this out where this is not a human punishment. This is something that's happening. That's why you're reading it as functional, and I think that's right. This is a consequence. It's describing what's happening.
There are natural consequences.
Right. What I wanted is everyone to jump down to the bottom. Will you read the bottom at the end where the note is, where it says middling people? Everybody see it? Yeah.
The commentary suggests various explanations for the difference between those who are considering middling, neither righteous nor wicked, and those who are classified as wicked. The commentary in the text follows Rashi, who explains that although members of the middle group refuse to show sympathy towards those who are in distress, they do recognize that they themselves are in danger, whereas the wicked imagine they are immune to the perils of threatening the community.
Keep reading.
Oh, sorry.
okay.
Others suggest that although the members of the middle group withdraw from the community in its time of need, they do so only in private, whereas the wicked declare publicly that they are unaffected by the problems of others. Yet other commentaries argue that although the members of the middle group are indifferent to the troubles suffered by the community, they repent when they themselves are struck by the same afflictions. By contrast, the wicked fail to repent even when suffering reaches their own.
Okay, amazing, thank you. So I want to be really careful here, lest anyone go and turn to their neighbor and start saying things to them. I want to. We're reading this on a deeper level, not just like someone who stops paying dues, right? Who's like, we're talking about someone who internally, on some level, is saying, "That's not me. This is not my problem. This is not my community." There are consequences to that internally, even if no one else is involved. When I say to myself, "You're not my problem," there are consequences to that. Emotional consequences, spiritual consequences. That's what we're talking about here, right? The Gemara continues. We'll read the next paragraph here, and I'll just sort of take us to the end, and then we can sort of unpack it together. So what is it that the wicked people, what's the attribute of the wicked person? Where I'm in the fourth line in the English. Wicked people, what is written about those who hope for more of these days? Come, this is a verse now from Isaiah. Come, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow will be as this day, and much more abundant, right? So the community is suffering. They're saying, hey, let's throw a party, right? This is a terrible example, but we know in various places when COVID was hitting, right, some people didn't play by all the same rules. Right, some people were.
Prime Minister of England.
That's exactly the example I was thinking of. Right, I was hosting parties while the rest of us are stuck inside. Right, they are not. Again, I'm not making any spiritual statements or any political statements, but here to seem to say they are not participating on the same level. Right. Again, I am not calling anyone a Rasha here. What's written afterwards? We're at the next verse. The righteous perishes, and no man lays it to heart, and godly men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. This verse teaches that the righteous people suffer an early death. This is Rabbi Steinsaltz here, to prevent them from witnessing the harm that will befall these evil people. Which is to say, what's going to happen? The righteous people are going to die. In one of the shiurim that I was listening to about this, Rabbini Farber was saying that the reason why they die, like righteous people, such that they exist, are going to pray on your behalf. And if they're dead, they can't pray on your behalf. And so in the world to come, the Rashaim are not going to get that benefit, right? They're going to lose out on this. Okay, here we're going to come to an end. The Braita continues. Ella, rather, a person should be distressed together with the community. So now we talked about all the people who separate themselves. Here, a person should be distressed together with the community. As the positive framing, as we found with Moses, our teacher, when he was distressed together with the community. How do we know this, right? We know this because Moshe did it. Moshe Rabbeinu, no less. As it is stated during the war with Amalek. But Moses' hand were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat upon it. All right, so I don't know if people remember the story. There's a battle. He's standing up sort of on the hilltop, and every time his arm was up, they would win. Every time his arm went down, they would lose, right? So they were like holding his arm up, okay? But he was sitting on a stone. I love this line, such like an amazing line. But didn't Moses have one pillow or one cushion to sit on? Why was he forced to sit on a rock? What, he couldn't give me a pillow, something soft to sit on? Amazing. The Gemara is amazing. Rather, Moses said as follows. Since the Jewish people are immersed in suffering, I too will be with them in suffering, as Rabbi Steinsaltz here, as much as I am able. I think it's such an important line. Although I'm not participating in the fighting itself, right? The Braita adds, anyone who is distressed together with the community will merit seeing the consolation of the community. Full loop, we closed it. Ooh, what a great example. Say more about that.
No, I mean, you're not the mourner, but you're doing everything you can to be there for the mourner and feel those feelings. But when I read this paragraph, I just had so many different thoughts, because on one hand, yeah, we want to be there for each other as much as possible, but I'm just thinking nowadays there's so much bad happening in the world, and we know all about it because of the media, and people do say, I have to step away, I can't read any more news because it's too much. It's like destroying them as a person. Yeah. So is that bad to do? Or is that self-preservation, and then you come back and you're stronger, better able to hold your arm up and sit on a rock? I don't know.
Personally speaking, just to make clear what I think it's the second. No one should be required to live in the suffering 100% of the time. It's okay to take breaks, be a human, play with your kids, laugh, watch a
But I
TV
also
show.
think
also
that's
different.
But-
not in a community by reading the news. The community is not on their phone reading the news. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's a break. Like that's like when you take breaks in that sense, that doesn't mean you're not participating in
Right.
the community.
I agree.
guess, is
Right.
The
That's
action. Yeah.
Right, that would point. So the second thing you said, which is like, you're still a human being. You can manage it and still be with the community. I think you've got that right. I like the way you frame
I
it.
also think there's a difference from taking distance to protect yourself because you're feeling for the community, versus like eat, drinking, and being merry and ignoring. Like it's
Yeah.
like being gluttonous in the face of hardship. That's different than self-preservation.
Right, self-preservation is the presumption that actually I am suffering with the community. I'm holding that suffering, and actually I need to create space so that I can actually come back to that suffering. Right, so it's really not this. It's not the same.
So
That's
I think
a
I
great analogy.
understand what they meant by community. I wonder what we mean by community. So the hard question is, okay, so we should be in solidarity. We should feel the same kind of suffering that they felt in Bondi Beach. Okay, everybody agrees with that. That's easy. What about what's happening to immigrants? They probably would not have defined them necessarily as part of their community. Maybe they would, but probably people on this table would. But does this apply?
The language in the text is tzibur, is the public.
Oh, not the community.
Right. It's not people. It's not shchuna, a neighborhood.
Tequila.
Right? Or kahila, community, right? It's tzibur. So here there's an editor's choice in English. But your point is well made, right? Which is, how are we defining community? I don't think we actually need to define it and like create a hard boundary on it. Everyone can sort of decide on their own.
I also think there's
But I think you're right that is the fundamental question, which is, where are we placing that boundary and how do we hold space for it? Yeah.
But I think there's also like context for it. So I mean, I will tell you, like the first thing I thought of when they talked about the traveling here and leaving places during like sun hours is like sunset communities where like black people were like should not go. Like I think Jews experienced that in a real way 1,000 years ago. I think they experienced it in a real way 500 years ago. I don't think it's something we experience as much in a real way now. But like that, I think the rabbis had context for that. I think they would have connected very closely with communities of people who felt that traveling at night was dangerous.
It's a great example. Yeah.
I mean, that also builds into like one of the early comments here, which was if two people are arguing, you might look at them and say, "Oh, look at these people, they're quarrelsome," which must mean like that. That's a very self-conscious statement. That's very much saying like, people don't like us. We need to make a good face to the world, and arrive like and that went right into the sunset line. So it feels like there is this sort of tension of like, whatever we do inside our house or in our tighter hila, we got to be careful what other people see us do because it could harm us as a larger group.
It's so interesting to me because sometimes when something bad like the Australian event or October 7th, I go into my workplace. I don't know if there are any Jews in my workplace, and if they are, they're very undercover. And it's like people act like it's just another normal day. I think to myself, they don't realize how much that affects me. Like, I feel that so deeply, and I can rely when I go to shul, people are going to say something. I'm on a listserv with old friends. Of course, they're going to say something, but I realize a lot of my non-Jewish friends and colleagues don't like it. They don't think it's a good thing that happens, but they don't realize like how much I have internalized this event that has occurred nowhere near to where I live. And I kind of walk around like, how could they just be acting like everything is normal? I don't know. Like, I do feel so connected. I think we probably all feel connected to Jews who literally live halfway around the world. And we don't say, this can't happen to me. We don't separate. We say, this could have been us. This could have been us on a beach here. Anyway, it's just something I thought about this week.
I think you're right. I think that's not only a reasonable thing to say. I don't think you're alone in feeling that way. I think it's also a valuable opportunity for us to say all the things we don't notice for other people, right? Not just like everyone's fighting a battle we don't know about, but communities who are suffering in ways that we don't have conceptions for, right? Gives us an invitation to hold that as well. And the pain that comes from recognizing when my suffering, my community suffering is not recognized, right? Like we can hold both of those, right? The invitation for others and also wishing that people saw ours. Yeah.
I think I disagree with none of this. I think like you show up, and if you don't show up, that like I often say, like, if you keep saying no enough times, no one's gonna ask you again, right? Like I have friends who like I fell out of touch with them because I invited them 100 times and they said no, and then 101 like I'm not inviting you, like you don't come. So I think that's all true and fair and functionally, whether or not like the community is removing you or whatever. I think it's really hard to see how early on Judaism gets tied to trauma, and that like you effectively, effectively it's saying like you can't even have a community without a negative event to bound it together, which is, something I have been struggling a lot with post October 7th, and this idea of like, if we're not bound by our trauma, and if we don't create more trauma, then how are we bound together, right? Like, why can't we be bound in things that are not traumatic? And so like, it's very interesting to me that like so early on the rabbis see that as like a binding of the community, and like if you don't show up, then like you're out. Like what if you don't want to be in the trauma community? What if you're like, I can live a very happy life not being a Jew?
Yeah. Well, I think
it's
people,
not the life I've chosen, obviously.
Right,
but
right,
like
right.
it's
I think people can, and they do. Right?
They do.
I'll say this. I'll come to you, and then you after. But before I do, I'll say this, which is, it's way easier to ignore other people when things are good.
Sure.
Right? And so there is something about human nature. I'm not disagreeing with the point you're making because it's a good one. There is something about human nature where we gather in pain.
Yeah,
right?
true.
Shiva was a great example. Right? I host a birthday party. Not everybody's going to come. Right? Nobody, like, not inviting everybody. It's fine. In a Shiva, that's the time other people see it and show up. And so there is something fundamentally different between the good moments and the bad moments, I think. And
I
so,
personally actually will say, if I would come to Shiva, I'll come to your wedding. Like no,
Yeah.
seriously, like if I would fly to your Shiva, then like I need to show up to the good things too, right? Like I don't think everyone necessarily
No,
but like it's something that's
agree.
important to me, right? Like
Yeah.
don't just show up for Shiva.
yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I think that's an ideal case.
Sure.
Right?
I'm not 100% sure of my point here, but it feels on point. So I was very upset with my nephew this week,
He's
who is
wrong.
Jewish. Thank you. So, everything just happened in Bondi Beach. I post on social, like, there was a hashtag that was trending, Light for Australia. I literally just posted a picture of our menorah, Light for Australia, and other sappy things. And then my nephew posts a picture. The first one is him at LAX, and it's guess where I'm going. And then the next picture in his story is just a picture of a beach with a little geolocator, Bondi Beach. So my Jewish nephew is posting in Bondi Beach, that he happens to have gone to Australia. And so I sent him a message. I'm like, is this being posted in solidarity with with the folks in Australia? Or are you actually there right now? He's like, oh yeah, it's just a coincidence. I'm in Australia right now. Which is totally fine, he could be in Australia. It felt so tone deaf to me that here he is on the first night of Hanukkah in Sydney, in Bondi Beach, and not acknowledging it's a poignant moment for me to be in Bondi Beach. As a Jew, I'm sure there were markers or people gathering, and it just seemed so crazy to me that he posted something literally standing there in this place where I'm feeling solidarity with on the other half of the world, and he's standing like at that site and not feeling solidarity with him. Anyhow, I'm not quite sure what to make of it, but it felt like very.
Well, maybe he was separating himself.
That's exactly. That's why like that little anecdote kept coming through, but I wasn't sure.
Are you
like,
sure? Are you sure that he posted after the event?
Yes, 100%.
So
He's there this week. There's a wedding. My brother's.
I'll say this because I don't want to necessarily comment on your nephew. I think the most important part of this text is who the agent is, who's doing the act. The person is doing it to themselves. Nobody's doing it to them. And I think it's important. It's like, where does responsibility lie? Each one of us has our own responsibility about how we are showing up in and around community. Right? The agent is us, each one of us. I can't control the way anyone else in my life shows up to anything. Right? Not my wife, not my kid, not my sibling, not my parent, nobody, right? Your nephew, right? Well, you can say that about your nephew. Right? All we can do is decide how we show up. And I think it matters, right? It's not that someone who separates community is kicked out. No. Like, that's not what the text is saying. All right, Dan, I'm going to give you the last word.
So, like, two sort of related things. One is kind of like everything about like brought together by trauma. I mean, the rabbis of the writing, like they were living in trauma. Their parents were in trauma. Their parents' parents were in trauma. Their parents' parents were in trauma. So like, it's not that they say that trauma is necessary. It's that it's all they've known. And I'll make this last word because I feel like it sort of pushes like, and we've kept having traumas, but like it's not their fault that they say we bind each other together for trauma because that's all they know. So the question is like, if we are in a world, maybe soon, where there is not trauma, like what would we do to bind ourselves together? Like what would be a community that is built that is not just one trauma after the other? And yeah,
I love that. Two things. One is the rabbis of the Mishnah, more or less like their grandparents who experienced the Chorban Habayit, the destruction of the temple. They're really not that far away from this really destructive thing, right? Hillel and Shammai, like it was their grandparents. They're not called rabbis because rabbis weren't entirely a thing yet, right? The Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai hasn't like put the stuff together. So you're so right to say, right? They're close to it too, right? And the rabbinic tradition is built on what do we do in the aftermath, right? I think
Hillel and Shammai were pre-Chorban, right?
I'm sorry?
Hillel and Shammai were pre-Chorban.
No. Post.
They're Mishnah,
post.
right?
Yeah, Mishnah. For sure post.
Yeah.
70 CE, the Mishnah's not until the 2nd century. It was pretty close. Let's put it that
I
way.
mean, when they were living, not when they're.
Maybe they were like.
It was pretty
born.
close. But
Maybe
either
they were
way,
born.
either way, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
That's why they have all those teachings around like what the temple was like. It's because they didn't experience it, but their grandparents did or whatever. Okay. This apropos to the thing that you and I were talking about right before class. Again, I knew where we were going. So, which is, what is the question? Like, it's one thing to say, don't separate yourself from the community. It's another to say, what does it look like to opt in? To be a part of community, to be here. Like, we've gathered here. We are now a community of people who study Gemara together. Like, that's not a small thing. We might be quarrelsome. That's fine.
And that's why we're sitting in one place.
Right. We're sitting in one place, so it'll be less quarrelsome. The question is, right, what does it look like to opt in? What does it look like not to separate for yourself community, but to be a part of, to be engaged with, to be a serious part of? I started us off by having a conversation around what does it mean to be vulnerable, right? Traveling is vulnerable. What does it look like for a community to be vulnerable? That's the conversation. That's the meta conversation here. What do we do with that vulnerability? And the dangers are clear. The question is like, what do we do about it? And I think there are a lot of good answers to it. I'm not going to propose any now. I'm sure you can come up with some. But I think that is, at least for this is like why like Torah is so amazing. It's like I had planned this weeks ago. I was like, God forbid I should like know such things, right? We were meant to study this tonight, even though I had to print it out separately. Okay. Grid learning. I'm sorry we're a little over time. We'll see you all